Hello there, my name is Adam Godwin, and in this video we're going to look at 10 different teaching strategies that cultivate self-regulated learning and metacognition in the classroom. We're going to have secondary school students in mind for this video, and for those who don't know, very briefly, self-regulated learning is about planning, monitoring, evaluating and regulating the learning process, and metacognition is the cognitive aspect of that, sometimes described as thinking about thinking. So let's have a look at 10 different strategies for fostering metacognition and self-regulated learning. Perhaps the most popular and tried and tested approach to metacognition is the use of lesson wrappers, which wrap the lesson, creating reflections at the beginning and reflections at the end. The student reflections at the beginning may be about how well prepared they are. It might be about connecting learning from previous learning sessions. It might be about their readiness to learn, their state of mind, how they might improve their readiness to learn and be in a better place to succeed in that lesson. And the reflections at the end of the session are obviously going to be more focused on performance evaluation and target setting. Many people might be thinking, lesson wrappers, another worksheet that I have to print off. And indeed, we have made at the Global Metacognition Institute some fantastic worksheets that you can print off. But some of the more environmentally conscious of you might be looking for a different strategy, and you can easily create a lesson wrapper effect using a PowerPoint presentation or simple verbal instructions which asks students to respond to particular metacognitive related questions. We've made a virtual lesson wrapper that you can download on our website, and it does allow you to do this lesson wrapper without having to print off loads and loads of worksheets. So don't say we're not doing our bit for the environment here at the Global Metacognition Institute. Very easy and straightforward approach to metacognition. I hope you find it useful. Let's have a look at the next one. You might decide that it's a good idea to simply teach students about metacognition and self-regulated learning directly and explicitly so that they can consciously apply themselves to developing these learning skills. And I should add that it's best not to do this in isolation on its own, but to have this accompanied by these systematic and comprehensive approaches that we've looked at in this video. Otherwise, students will know it, understand it, but probably forget about it and not really get much practice in applying these concepts and developing these learning skills. If you visit our website, we've put together an introduction lesson with a lesson plan and worksheets and PowerPoint to make it very easy to simply, directly teach students about metacognition and self-regulated learning. Perhaps the most important metacognitive strategy you can use as a teacher is the use of questioning, asking questions that promote and trigger metacognitive reflections. And we've made a series of teacher prompt cards that you can download for free at globalmetacognition.com that can help you practice these metacognitive questioning skills. As a general rule of thumb, when you're coming up with these questions, you want to be thinking about the self-regulation cycle of planning, monitoring, regulating, and evaluating. So, for example, the planning phase questions might be something like, what is the best way to approach this task? Or if you want to be really metacognitive and focus on the cognitive aspect of self-regulated learning, what is the best style of thinking when approaching this task? When it comes to monitoring, you might simply ask students, how is this going? And evaluating what are the strengths and weaknesses of my work so far? What are the strengths and weaknesses of my learning strategy? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the way I am thinking about this learning activity? And finally, perhaps most importantly, regulation. How can I improve my learning strategy? An interesting thing about metacognitive questions, I suppose, is that you can use them in a number of ways. You can use them when speaking to one student directly. You can ask them to the group as a whole. And crucially, you can model self-questioning skills, metacognitive thinking out loud when you're demonstrating a learning activity with the hope, I think a valid hope, that students will internalize your role modeling of metacognitive thinking and start to think in those ways themselves. So you might be, for example, making a mind map to illustrate something to students, and as you're making your mind map, you might think aloud to yourself, what do I need to be thinking about before approaching this task? Instead of just getting straight into it, you're modeling these metacognitive considerations. You might be halfway through demonstrating this particular activity or mind mapping activity, let's say, and you might say aloud to the students, what are the strengths and weaknesses of my approach, and how can I improve it? As a rhetorical question. And again, the aim here is to get students to internalize these self-questioning behaviors so that when they're doing work, they themselves will ask themselves those questions so that their work is improved in the process, and metacognitive awareness, self-regulated learning behaviors are fostered in the process. Very important strategy. Make sure to check out the articles section on the Global Metacognition Institute website, globalmetacognition.com, because we have a few articles about how to approach metacognitive questioning skills, which I think you'll find very useful. Let's have a look at the next strategy. I'm a huge fan of these metacognitive monitoring worksheets, which you should have students glue into the front and or back of their workbooks. These are great because they don't take up too much paper, as opposed to worksheets. You have to print off loads in a single session. With this, you just need one worksheet for a whole term, and students can regularly refer to them, indicating certain aspects of their readiness to learn at the start of lessons, for example, and their performance at the end of them. And if you have students install 2 monitoring worksheets in the front and back for the start and the end of lessons, it creates a nice, neat sandwiching effect. And one benefit of using these monitoring worksheets is that students can plot their progress and detect certain patterns as to what's influencing their rating on these various things. And you can download one of these metacognitive monitoring worksheets for free at globalmetacognition.com. But we've also created a pack of 10 that you can download in the premium download section using the YouTube 123 voucher if you want to get it half price. And 5 of those are monitoring worksheets for the start of lessons and 5 for the end. So do check it out, and I think you'll find it's a very useful way, an easy way of cultivating metacognition on a regular basis. It has that added advantage of being very systematic and allowing for easy, regular metacognitive reflection. And it's also very useful if students are arriving early and you have those few minutes that could be wasted at the beginning of lessons. You have this thing installed that students can refer to and get on with whilst they wait for the classroom to fill up. Now, it goes without saying that using metacognitive bookmarks is best suited for classes that are reading a book. However, you could also distribute them via the school library or just give them to students for their extracurricular reading. They're a simple way to get students thinking about metacognition, to raise awareness about metacognition, and to ask certain questions that they can come back to in order to refocus their mind on that metacognitive process or the process of self-regulated learning. Simple approach. You can download these metacognitive bookmarks at globalmetacognition.com and make sure to use the promo code YouTube123 to get them for half price. Sometimes metacognition and self-regulated learning involves reflecting about the much bigger picture. It might involve reflecting about oneself as a learner or factors outside of school, such as sleeping patterns or what one's doing with one's spare time. But more often than not, metacognition refers to specific learning activities. It asks students to reflect on how they're engaging with a particular learning activity in the lesson right there and then. And to this end, we developed these worksheets, which have the planning, monitoring, evaluating, and regulating phase of the metacognitive cycle neatly mapped out. You can print 3 to an A4 page, and they're double-sided, very, very easy to use. And you can use them with any learning activity, whether it's an essay writing, mind mapping, problem solving activity. They're suitable for all subjects, as are the rest of these resources. Very easy to use. You can download one of them for free from globalmetacognition.com, and we made a pack of 10 for those who really want to get into it. Do check it out, and let's have a look at the next strategy. One way to foster metacognition and self-regulated learning is by using debates and discussions, where you have students think, reflect and discuss and debate various aspects of their own learning and how they can improve it, and to put it simply, what is the best way to approach particular aspects of learning. And getting students to debate these is both very fun, it's very engaging. We made a number of ways of doing this. First of all, this disagree, agree activity you can see here, and the four corners debate both involve having students move around the classroom in order to express their position on certain claims or debates or aspects of learning. We've also made a think, pair, share question generator, discussion generator, as well as a metacognitive question discussion generator. And you can download the think, pair, share discussion generator for free at the Global Metacognition website in the free downloads section. Personal learning checklists. Really, every teacher should be using them. I think they are, put simply, a list of the different topics that students need to learn about, and then a space for them to evaluate where they are right now. And I think a good personal learning checklist should have space at the bottom for target setting and such the like. This is obviously referring to the monitoring and self-evaluating aspect of self-regulated learning, and the target setting, the regulation aspect. So it's a clear way of addressing this challenge of fostering self-regulated learning, and it really helps students to understand what is expected of them in terms of the knowledge they need to have acquired at various points. It's useful to use personal learning checklists at various points throughout the teaching process so that students can monitor their progress. You might decide to use some kind of reflection journal that refers to self-regulated learning or metacognitive reflection questions and tasks. On our website we've made two that you can download and print yourself. One of them is the Metacognitive Workbook, which features over 100 pages of different metacognitive reflection activities. And we've also made something that we've called the Learning Power Journal, which is best suited to form tutors or people who see the same students every day, because it has a day-by-day, week-by-week structuring of these reflection tasks, which is better suited to that situation. And the Metacognitive Workbook might be particularly of interest to those who work on one-to-one level with students. So you might, for example, be working in the special educational needs department and have weekly appointments with a student, and you can use the Metacognitive Workbook each week to develop different aspects of that student's self-regulated learning behaviours and metacognitive skills. Let's have a look at the next activity. Assessment wrappers are a tried and tested approach to fostering metacognition in the classroom, and they're most suited for when you're doing practice exam papers or formal assessments, so that students are reflecting on how they're approaching assessment in general, how they are preparing, and also in the here and now of teaching, their readiness for a particular assessment. They have a kind of sandwiching effect, a bit like a lesson wrapper, whereby students reflect both at the beginning before an assessment and at the end after an assessment. As you can see on the screen, we've made some very attractive looking exam wrappers or assessment wrappers that you can download from globalmetacognition.com. If you want to develop this aspect of your teaching practice so that you can better nurture metacognitive thinking and self-regulated learning behaviours, make sure you visit globalmetacognition.com right now. In the free downloads section, you'll find a range of resources you can download absolutely free, no sign up required whatsoever. Click the download all icon and you'll get the whole lot at once. You can also sign up for the mailing list, and if you do, you'll be sent instantly a free Growth Mindset Toolkit. We've made a range of over 40 teaching resources that are focused on metacognition and self-regulated learning, and if you wanted to download any of them, you can use the promotional code YouTube123 to save 50% on your order. The best value way to get hold of all of the resources is through a membership plan, and as you can see, there are membership plans for individual teachers, department heads, which allow all of the members of your department to use the resources you download, and whole school plans, which are best suited for educational leaders, headmasters, school principals, and the like, who want to provide metacognition and self-regulated learning teaching resources to all of their staff. And note, if you sign up for a whole school plan, it grants free access to our online CPD course for all of the teaching staff in your school. So it's a fantastic value solution for improving metacognition and self-regulated learning in your school. Thank you so much for listening, and check out some of our other videos.